Hi guys, and welcome on into a very different episode of the Gibson Show, where today I am going to start giving you guys a breakdown of all of the groups going to SI. And today I want to kick it off with Group A, which makes a lot of sense. So Group A, of course, will consist of Elevate, G2, KOI, SSG, and W7M. So this is, of course, a beginner's guide to all of these teams. So what we're going to do today is just look at every single team one by one, give you a couple of little tidbits about each side and some things that I think each team will be expecting to do going into SI. So first off, the first team we're going to look at is Elevate, your team from APAC. And if I'm being honest, I think that Elevate are the most consistent team in the APAC region as of right now. Yes, they had some issues earlier on this year. They weren't able to travel due to visa issues to Charlotte, but I think when you look at the way they play, they're definitely the APAC team that I think style will perform best at an international stage. Team consists of Onigiri, DCH, Mark, Mr. Punch, and Sapper. And I think when you look at Elevate, one of the things that maybe holds them back is sometimes they can be a little bit over-reliant on Onigiri. And, you know, it makes sense. He's one of the best players in all of Rainbow Six Siege. You know, he holds the kill record with 27 kills in a single map. And I think when he's not firing, sometimes they can find things just a little bit tough. The one thing I will still say, though, is he does have a good supporting roster. DCH and Sapper are two players that I'm very, very big fans of, and they can be pretty strong on maps like Bank, Cafe, and Villa with an 80% win rate or higher on most of those maps. Now, their worst maps statistically on the other side of the coin are Club Theme and Oregon, which can be a worry going into international play, especially with best of threes, because it's going to be very difficult to avoid all three of those maps. So look for teams maybe to try exploit that. Statistically, though, they are a better team on attack and defense, which makes them a little bit of an anomaly. And if they do decide to play objective on attack, expect Mark to be the one to put the case down, although these teams usually let the barrels of their guns do the talking for them. Interesting tidbit about this team is all 5 players are going into this with a cost of 64% or higher, which means that every single player has an impact in 64% of rounds, whether it's killing, objective, survivability, or trade. Overall, for me, when I think of Elevate, a win for them will be to make it in front of the crowd. You know, expectations for them going into this, APAC hasn't won an invitational. I think for them, getting in front of the crowd would be a huge deal. And they're a team that I have a lot of love for. But looking at Group A, they may just struggle. I worry a little bit, but I do think that they are a side that could cause some upsets. And if they do make it to the stage, if they do, you know, make it to that Friday with the crowd in place, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of love for the side whenever they make it there. So the question is, what does success look like for APAC? So next team on our list, so this is, as I said, a short and sweet video today as we're going to round on through. Up next, we have SSG, former world champions, with players whose names are going to go down in the history books of Rainbow Six. The roster, as of right now, consists of Bosco, Hot and Cold, Fultz, Rampy, and the recent acquisition from Sonics, which was Yeti. The big thing that I like about this team is they know what it takes to win at an international level. A couple of their players have won an invitational on console and on PC, and they're a side that I think they were unlucky. They were pretty unlucky that the whole world hit a halt just after they won their invitational. They could have gone on to do big things together. But as you know, the world doesn't quite work that way. Things moved on. And in Stage 3, they did make a change. They brought in Yeti, who went on to have, individually, pretty much the best stage of his career so far. So, I think that beating TSM in the NA Closed Quals is going to have a massive impact on the side. They're going to go into this tournament with some momentum. The only knock that I have with SSG is sometimes they can be a little bit too objective focused, especially on attack. They look like sometimes they want to get the case down every single round, And when it doesn't work, sometimes plan B doesn't look as strong. But they are adapting. They are changing. And during APAC or the NA close quals, we saw the very best and the very worst of this side. When you're looking at their map pool, Bank is statistically their strongest map with a 75% win rate there and on Club and Cafe in second and third, but there is a small sample size in some of those maps. My biggest worry for SSG is their Oregon is pretty poor. They went there 10 times last year and they only won it 4 of those times, so 40% is pretty low on a map that you'd think would suit the SSG style really, really well. And the question is, can they turn that around? Attack and defense, their win rates are pretty much positive. 51% on attack, 54% on defense, which goes to show that they have been middle of the pack in NA for most of the year. And the record over the year is around that 50% mark as well. If you are looking for how they're going to play, look for Bosco, or Bosco to some people like to call him, to get the case down every single time he possibly can. And the big pro for them is they do have multiple players that are capable of winning 1vx's. You look through NAL, you look at the events that they've played this year, every single player has shown at times that they can win those 1vx scenarios. And I do think that they will make it out of groups. For me, SSG will definitely make it out of groups. If they get momentum going, they can be a very difficult side for teams to play against. The thing that I would really say will boost them is being in front of a live audience. Players like Bosco, like Rampy, like Yeti, they feed off audience energy. And if they do make it through to the audience stages of SI, they could definitely surprise some teams. I think that they're going to be happy they're at SI. They're going to feel like they deserve to be there. The big one for them now is proving that point at SI. How far can this team go? It's down to them at the end, but I still have some question marks around SSG. So, up next, we are going to LATAM, and we are going to talk about W7M. W7M, all year, have looked phenomenal in their home region. They recently came second in the Cup in the Brazil, and then in LATAM, they actually won the most recent stage. The big thing is they've never really gotten to show us what they can do in the knockout stages. To me, if they avoid APA or other LATAM teams, they could probably do very, very well. I think a lot of people will go into this event expecting them to make it to the top 4. Some people even have this team penciled in as SI winners. I want to see more from them in knockouts. You look at the roster, you've got Herds, KZ, JV, Volps, and Julio. KZ has what, like a plus 42 entry? Plus 32 for Volps. Like, those two on entry are incredible. If you let those two players get going, you're not going to beat them. They play very, very well off of those opening picks, and that's how they kind of strong-arm teams into bending to their will. So for them, I want to see them finally live up to their potential. I think a lot of people would like to see W7M lifting that hammer at the end of the event. As I said, they're outside of my top 4 for now when it comes to overall picture of SI, but that could change very, very quickly. Now, maps that you look at that they're strong at, they're very good at Border, they're very good at Chalet, and Club, and Cafe. All 4 of those maps have a 70% win rate or higher for this side. And what do those maps have in common? Well, a lot of them, gun skill has a big say, especially when you look at Chalet. So, to me, they have a very strong map pool. In theory, that should help them whenever it does come to the best of 3s, which of course groups are. Let's not forget, they 7-0'd Team Liquid in Sweden. Team Liquid, who ended up in the final, got 7-0'd by W7M. I expect them to make a deep run. I expect them to be playing on the Friday in front of the audience. I probably expect them to be playing on the Saturday. Is this W7M's year? Who knows, but I'm really excited to see KZ and the boys going at it. Next up, we're going to move to our 2 European teams. First off the bat is going to be G2. So G2, are one of the biggest orgs in Siege for a reason. They're a dynasty. They've had lots of success, but in recent years, they've not really been the team that we know and love. It's not had that same feel. Now, going into this event, they just completed a blockbuster trade that's actually involved 3 different teams. So if you haven't been keeping up to Siege, what's happened is Citizen, one of the pillars of success, one of the guys who I think had a massive impact on the good things that happened for G2 over the course of the last few years, has gone to Sonics in a move that I think definitely elevates Sonics into proper contenders for SI. Now, you lose a player like Citizen, how do you get back, or how do you bounce back from that? Well, they have brought in Benja from SI, or from Heroic for SI, and to me, I look at that move and I don't know what Heroic were doing, because this is a move that really strengthens one of your regional rivals. Benja is a very different player to Citizen, and with Citizen going, there's been a real shake in the roles in this team. So they've got a new IGL. Benja likes to get up in people's faces in the early round. He's one of the star kids in EU, and I think that because of that, they might have a slow day 1. They might even have a slow day 2, but I expect G2 and their exciting playstyle to make it through out of this group, and I definitely think that they probably will make it to the crowd stages. Big thing for G2, don't let them get momentum. If they get momentum, they'll start to really get things going, and I think they're just going to go from strength to strength as SI goes through. Do I think that they're going to win the Invitational? They've got the pieces. They've got all the right players in all the right places. But the question is it too soon in the development of this team? I don't know, but I know that they definitely want to prove the world wrong. So, you want to talk about maps that they're going to be pretty good on? When you look at their map pools, it's hard to talk about it. You change your IGL, so it's not something you'd maybe look into too much. 75% win rate on Chalet and Theme, 75% plus. So they do have a couple of good maps, but I think we're just going to have to wait to SI to see what that map pool looks like when we get there. As I said, they will get out of groups. How far are they going to go? It's down to themselves. So that was G2. And the last team we are going to look at going in to the 6th Invitational Group A is, of course, KOI. So, personally, I have KOI in my top 4 for this event. I think that they'll definitely be playing on the final day if they don't do anything silly. To me, they're that good of a side. They've got a core, or they had a core roster going into last year. You had Leon Gids, you had Deepak, you had Crine, you had Kanto Raketti, and then in stage 2, once he became eligible to play, they added Spoit, and it brought instant rewards. If you think back to that final inside of Berlin, Spoit had a huge game. Every single player had an impact, and they won their first major with Spoit on the roster. Stage 3, wheels came off just a little bit. We spoke to Spoit. I think that they maybe were a little bit complacent. They were major champions. Maybe they thought that they were going to find things a little bit easier, and some teams adapted to their style of play a little bit more than they would have expected. But they have a very good backroom staff. Meepy's a very good coach. They've got Bernie and they've got Tristan in the backroom doing incredible things with those players as well. And I think that they've found out what was wrong. They're going to fix it. And I think they're definitely one to watch for this side. For me, the biggest strength for KOI is the passion. Whenever they get some momentum going, it's really difficult to shut them down. So look for teams to try to kill that momentum early. If you don't, KOI are going to be a very, very difficult team to stop. So one key thing about KOI would maybe be to talk about their playstyle on defense. They're very good at wearing enemy attacks down, and they're very effective at their time management on defense as well. They bring operators like Echo. You think back to the impact that Big ET had in Berlin, and I think teams find it frustrating to attack against them sometimes. And on attack, Spoit and Crine are the 1-2 punch. watch for those two having a big impact on entry. And once again, once those teams get a bit of momentum on entry, KOI will be difficult to stop. Their map pool, their strongest maps are Club Oregon and Sky. They're the maps that they've had the most success on. Weaker maps are Border and Theme, but overall, on the map pool, apart from Border and Theme, they've got a 50% win rate on all of the maps. This team will make it out of groups. They will play, or they will and should play in every single day that they're eligible to inside of this tournament. They're going to feed off crowd energy. Look for this team at minimum to be in that top 4, and they'll be disappointed if they don't win the whole thing. So, you know, short and sweet video. I hope it helped. A lot of the opinions in that video are my own, and I get things wrong a lot of the time, but I hope that I helped some people who are maybe new to some of these teams get some anticipation ahead of Group A. I want to give some credit to all of the teams. Some of the pictures that you saw up on the screen were taken from their Twitters. It's Me Error, I think it's Yao is his name. I took a couple of photos that he had taken at some events, so credit going to him as well. And I want to give some credit to Peak as well. Peakalicious, he has a stat sheet that I got a lot of the stats for this, and I'll get those stats for all the other teams as well as we look through the group. So massive shout out to Peak as well. But guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and we'll see you very, very soon in Montreal.